All right, so a good little combination movement here for a hip warm-up. We're going to go into a single leg hinge plus a forward to reverse lunge, kind of changing the PVC position as well. But for this, I'm going to have Jeremy go ahead and start by just getting into a good single leg stance. So melting that stance leg foot, eccentric splay, making sure that the knee is soft so that we're activating through the glute, not the quad, and then nice and tall through the spine. So for here, I'm going to have him start by going into a hinge pattern, getting length in the hamstring, extending back through, and then he'll step forward into a lunge, and then back into a reverse lunge and take the PVC pipe overhead just to change the center of mass. And we'll go ahead and do another rep or two here. Starting the single leg hinge. And one more time. Perfect. All right, so another combination movement here for our hip warm-ups. And for this one, we're gonna have Jeremy go into a curtsy lunge and then into an opposite lateral lunge. And as we'll see here in a second, just kind of working those contrasting patterns back and forth. So for this, we'll start by getting good hand grip activation on the PVC pipe. He's going to go into a curtsy lunge, and as he goes into that curtsy lunge, I want to cross the body with the PVC pipe, and then he'll come across into an overhead lateral lunge the opposite direction, and then switch it, curtsy lunge this way, going across into the overhead lunge the opposite way. Another good hip combination movement here for the sake of warm-up, movement prep interset is a glute ham walkout. So this is a good one for the sake of efficiency in that we're going to get both an isometric glute bridge and an isometric hamstring bridge, and then some transitioning in between. So for this one, I'm going to have Jeremy start by go ahead and laying back and getting into a good glute bridge. So heels are going to be at the knees or closer to the hips, and he's going to get his hips nice and high, and then we're just going to walk it out. 1, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3 count here in the hamstring bridge, and then walk it back in. 1, 2, 3, hold back in that glute bridge. So as he goes and does another couple reps here, we just want to make sure that the pelvis is staying nice and stable. We're not getting a lot of rocking, and then those foot patterns are consistent, and he's kind of holding at each end range. All right, so here we have a knee drop into a lunge pattern, and this is another one where we're going to get a lot of different things out of this. This is a great one for hip internal, external rotation, and then as we'll see here in a second, also getting some dorsiflexion at end range with a little bit of cross-body reaching. So for this one, before we get Jeremy on the demo, this is a tricky one for some people, myself included. I cannot perform that knee drop pattern without having my hands assisted behind me. So if you have somebody who has something similar to that, just support through the hands as they're doing this. But thankfully, Jeremy's a stud athlete, so he doesn't need any assistance. And here we're just gonna have him start by dropping the knees down, and then I'm gonna have him come off the ground by squeezing into a glute bridge, and then he'll reach that top leg across, and then kind of reach the hand across the body as that knee goes over the toe into dorsiflexion. And then we'll have him reverse the pattern, sit it back, and then work across to the opposite side. Go ahead and hit one more each way. All right, now we have one of everybody's favorite movements, that being a duck walk. For this one, we are going to basically drop down into kind of a catcher's position, and we're going to just work a nice steady action here coming forward. And what I want to focus on this is having the least amount of body transition as possible. So as he's moving across, I want the majority of the motion to come from the feet, the ankles, and the hips, as opposed to him rocking up and down and in and out of the position. So this is a great example here of just transitioning smoothly through this pattern and getting some good foot bend and some good hip action as we're doing so. And then as he finishes forward, he's going to reverse direction and then go ahead and come backwards in that reverse pattern. So here we have a QL walk. This is probably one of my most commonly programmed exercises, and I'll use this in a lot of different ways. But for this one, what we're really focusing on is that small muscle on the back, in the low back, just above the hip. And for the QL walk, this is one where it looks a lot easier than it really is. You'll see people struggle with this often. So the cueing for this, what we want to do is we want to have nice long legs, make sure that they're not locking the knees out and driving through the quad. And then similarly, I want him to get nice and tall through the torso and the backside. And then you're just going to think about this as almost bike pedal actions at the hip as you're moving through this, or just think about a dog scratching his ass, whichever works for you. But for this, I'm going to have him go ahead and get started here. So nice and tall, long legs, and then he's just kind of reaching up and back and pulling his body mass backwards with his direction here. Perfect. Then go ahead and flip it around and then just do the same thing a little bit.